Bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio del podcast de Loro, Parque, de Wild Voices. Miren, hoy vamos a hablar sobre un tema del que ya lo hemos hecho en otras ocasiones y que sin duda preocupa y muchísimo a mucha gente, principalmente aquí en Loro Parque, pero también en Francia. Miren, llevan más de 500 días en las instalaciones del Parque Acuático de Marineland en Antibes, en Francia. Estamos hablando de las dos orcas que ya, por desgracia, son mundialmente conocidas por la situación por la que están pasando, de Wikie y de Keijo. Cuando en enero de 2026 el ministro francés anunció que serían trasladadas al Whale Sanctuary Project, un santuario marino de Nueva Scotia en Canadá, el ministro lo presentó como la solución más creíble y ética. Los activistas, en ese momento celebraron lo que consideraban su gran victoria, pero ese santuario nunca se ha construido y nunca ha existido. De hecho, y esa es la única verdad de este asunto, es que los santuarios marinos no existen. Y el tiempo corre en contra de estos dos animales que no pueden esperar más. El plan se paralizó después de que expertos advirtieran de que el agua de Nova Scotia, entre otras cosas, sería demasiado fría para las orcas. Ese es y era uno de los grandes problemas que tenía este santuario que, como digo, nunca se ha llegado a construir. Y mientras tanto, el ministro francés, materialize, ha reconocido que ya se han dado todas las autorizaciones por parte francesa para el traslado al Loro Parque, que se perfila y es además la única salida, la única solución para estas dos orcas. De hecho, el ministro francés reconocía, no le quedaba más remedio que reconocer que los santuarios marinos no existen, por mucho que los activistas quieran protestar, quieran prometer, pero esa es la única verdad sobre este asunto. Miren, hoy vamos a hablar con el hombre que lleva meses advirtiendo sobre este asunto. No meses, sino desde hace mucho tiempo. Böye es el director científico marino del Loro Parque Fundación, actual presidente de la Asociación Europea para los Mamíferos Acuáticos, con una sólida trayectoria en conservación, en investigación aplicada y en gestión zoológica. Ha sido testigo directo de cómo la simplificación excesiva, los eslóganes y la manipulación de las emociones puede perjudicar a los animales. Para él, en este debate, lo que está en juego no es solo una batalla ideológica, que es lo que quieren hacer los activistas, son principalmente dos vidas. Martin, welcome to the podcast of Loro Parque.
Buenos días, thank you for the invitation.
Hola, buenos días. Con Martin podemos hablar en inglés y en español, pero vamos a preferir hacerlo en inglés. Lo van a tener, por cierto, lógicamente subtitulado, para que pueda explicarnos perfectamente cuál es la realidad de los santuarios marinos. Martin, we've heard a lot about this sanctuary in Nova Scotia, in Canada. Can you simply explain what it's about it?
This project of sanctuary was proposed by a team of people that wanted to offer an alternative solution to host marine mammals, and especially killer whales and beluga. And they started quite a long time ago, and they are keeping on promising this as a solution to host marine mammals in a bay in Nova Scotia. And this bay has been described as a solution, and they have started to ask a lot of money to finance this project. Until now, there is nothing.
This is the reality of this about this situation. But Martin, why did this project generate so much hope for orcas like Wikie and Keijo?
Because it's based on marketing. On the picture, you see something very nice. It's like natural landscape. And then based only on that, they promote it as a solution. So for people who don't know what these animals need, well, you can believe it's a good solution, but it is not.
What was the sanctuary supposed to look like? I don't know.
Technically, the solution they offer is to close a piece of the sea on the coast with nets. So it's an enclosure. It's not more than an enclosure, but built in the sea, which is technically very difficult.
Was the seat really ready to accommodate the orcas?
As far as we know, and we have looked cautiously in every detail based on the need of the animal. For example, one problem would be temperature. Temperature 6 months of the year is really too cold for these two animals that have been born and spend all their life close to the Mediterranean Sea. So they wouldn't be able to cope with that. On top of that, you have in this area very difficult winters. You have storms, you have hurricanes, so you need a solution to put these animals away from the sea pen if there is such big incidents. And in the plan, they don't have it. And another thing that shocked me a lot is that they have made some analysis about the quality of the water and the soil. And it has been based close to historic gold mining sites, where they use arsenic, for example, or other pollutants to treat the gold. And all this during years and years went in the soil. And when they did the analysis, they discovered that it was too much. And so they decided to let the pollution there, where they want to put the animal, which makes no sense. They said, well, the animal won't touch the ground, won't play with the stones. Well, we know they will. So they will play with the pollution.
This is the problem about the environment risk of the seed. But if we talk about the operational and technical risks, what are about it?
As I said, one of the main issue experts have is that when you build something like this, you need to think about what if we have a problem in the enclosure. And here in the plan, there is nothing, no backup solution. For example, if the water is too cold, you need to put the animal in a safe place. If an animal is sick for any reason, you need to put him in a safe place. This safe place, a backup pool, we say, is not existing. Then, as I said, it's built with nets. You have 2.5 kilometers of nets that are in the project. These nets will be covered step by step by all the life you can find in the sea. Mussel, algae, and many things. So you need to clean them. How we know that? From the fishing industry. When you have fish farms, a lot of work has to be done to clean the nets. If you don't clean the nets and you have currents, then you have a risk of destroying the net. And then the animal can go out. So that's a problem. Another one is, on this part of the world, you have marine mammals, and they face illness, problems, bacteria, virus, or whatever. Illness that Wikie and Keijo never met in their life. So the immune system is not ready for that. So if they are presented to these pathogens, they have a very high risk of having a health problem. And then we have some data from another project. It was an experiment that has been done in Iceland, the Beluga whale sanctuary. And during 6 years, they have tried to put the animal in a bay, thinking that it would be nice for them and the animal will enjoy it. The result is that they spend less than 5% of the 6 years in this bay, and anytime they were in the bay, they were stressed and they developed problems. So they had to put them in a backup facility that they had in this place. So it seems that it's not working. It's not good for the animal.
This is about the technical problem, but if we speak about the serious financial concerns, this is more problems.
Yeah. Everything in this project, it's an NGO, so you can access easily to the data if you go on the Canada State information page about the NGOs. And then you realize that what they want to do is collect money by donation, and they think they will have enough to build such a project. And they make a low estimate of the cost. Constructing the site, they say it will cost between 12 and 15 millions of euro equivalent. If you're a professional and you go back to other institutions, or zoological institution, and you speak with serious people, it will go much more than that. And if on top of that, you build the backup pool that will be needed, it goes up to 35 million of dollars. And this is only to build it. When you want to operate it and take care of the animal with everything needed, then it costs every year a lot of money. They say it will cost something like 1.5 million. It's more serious to think around 3 million euro a year. Only based on donation, you never know if you will be able to keep on.
A lot of money.
It's a lot of money. They already had, and that's also something that is worrying, they already had a lot of money. They had around 12 millions in donation. What we see is that nearly all the money has been already spent without building anything. So this is not a good way, I will say, to manage a budget.
And what about the political context and the opposition?
Yeah, the thing is, in this area, you have people living there. You have fishermen that are fishing. And if you want to build this project, you need the agreement of all the people around the project who have land. And several people, quite a lot, said they will never give their land to the project. So up to now, they even don't have the permit to build it. Because, for example, there is a strong fishermen association there, and they want to keep on doing what they do. So they are opposed to the project, and they say, no, we don't want a sanctuary there. So even there, it's not ready.
Martin, and what point did the project go from being promising to something far more uncertain?
We saw that in the media. If you read the archive in the media from the beginning of the project, everything was a promise. So people believed it. And more and more we go to the point we need, or they need to start to build it, we see that nothing is going on. So they have built already a shop, and that's it. And now more and more voices are saying that it won't work, even in the people that are not in favor of zoos. So you have, for example, different activists that are criticizing the project, saying that now it has been too long without any results, and they're also concerned about all the money raised without doing something with the money. So now there are more questions on the project than before, because the time is running, and they are promising a solution, and when you need the solution, they always say, wait a little bit more, we are almost ready, but they haven't started anything.
Martin, finally, why did the French authorities conclude that this sanctuary didn't exist?
Yeah, the situation of Wikie and Keijo is very bad. They are in a facility that is closed. There are several reports, 2 reports, saying that they can't stay here. So now they have to move. So the French government was looking for many solutions. And this is politics. You have to please everyone. So they have tried to discuss with the activists. They have tried to discuss with sanctuary promoters. They even invited them for a meeting. I was at this meeting. I was able to discuss with them. And during this meeting, they said, we have a solution. It will be ready for the beginning of this summer. It was last winter. And now, Mathieu Lefebvre has just to see that nothing has started. It's not existing, so Mathieu Lefebvre very wisely said, okay, it was a promise, it's not done, it doesn't exist, so I have to find a real solution where these animals can be kept in good condition with experts and other social companions, which is in Europe, Loro Parque.
Martin Böye, thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation.